You've leveled up, but you still haven't healed. One thing that I've noticed throughout my self-development and especially my healing journey is that men and women tend to process their grief differently. Now, me being a man, I've gotten a chance to really see how men process their grief. Okay, I've experienced some of the deepest, most profound emotional pain that one could experience. And truth be told, I'm the one who subjected myself to the majority of it. And the people in my life simply reflected it back to me. But when you're going through it, you don't see it that way. Your vision is hazy. Okay, you don't really understand why the things that are happening to you are happening to you, and it creates a lot of resentment. And I believe for a lot of men, and like I said, I'm speaking from experience and observation, just seeing the other men in the self-help community who comment on my videos and just their general perspectives, seeing in retrospect how my mindset shaped who I became and where I got to in life, I realized that that resentment is one of the most potent sources of fuel that one could ever utilize to get to a place that they see fit for themselves. Now, that plaque that you see in the background, that 100K plaque, that plaque isn't there if I don't get my heart broken back in 2020. If I don't get my heart broken in 2020, if me and that girl end up in a relationship at that time instead of things ending the way that they did, you can read my book Soul Shock if you want to hear more about that. I'll touch more on Soul Shock in a little bit, but if that doesn't happen, I'm still working at H&M. I'm not doing YouTube anymore. I quit YouTube already because I didn't have that fire, that resentment. This is something that I've spoken at length about with my therapist because ever since I took on the process of writing my pain down and truly processing my grief as opposed to utilizing it as fuel, suddenly I found myself without that fire and that killer instinct that helped get me to where I am today. And I think that for a lot of men, that's the fear. Okay, a lot of men, because we have a tendency to live at the surface level, we live from the ego, we utilize any source of fuel that we can find, even if it's not necessarily the best thing for our emotional and spiritual well-being. We're willing to sacrifice our well-being for the sake of success, but ultimately, we still end up feeling bad on the inside. Now, the title of this video is You've Leveled Up, but You Still Haven't Healed. And like I said, I feel like through my self-development journey, that's one of the main things that I've noticed amongst men, is that men have this tendency to channel all of that pain into their self-development journey so that they can level up on this girl or this person, these people that have hurt them. But ultimately, those people don't care. They don't. And I think that the men who take on their self-development journeys, they know that deep down, but they still feel like they're unworthy of love. They still feel like they're inadequate. That person only reflected back to them how they saw themselves, their self-perceptions. And so now they take on these self-development journeys with the hopes that they can learn to love themselves. But love will always be just out of arm's reach. Always, because you're chasing it. Okay, the only way you can feel true love is to be present. And to be present is to process your grief. You have to learn to process your grief. This is something that I've noticed about women. Women have a tendency to process their grief when it happens. Okay, when you see women get cheated on, they take some time to process their grief. And of course, I'm generalizing. I'm speaking to the majority here. If you're the exception to the rule, this doesn't apply to you. Women have a tendency to process their grief, whereas men have a tendency to utilize their grief, turn their grief into fuel. Because of this, women tend to move with a sense of clarity, but they lack that fire. Personally, I believe that this is why a lot of men tend to be hyper successful, whereas women don't really tend to get to those same levels. There are plenty of boss women out there who are doing their things. Like I said, okay, I am not speaking to those women. I'm speaking to the women who are more content with where they are in life as a general rule of thumb because they've learned to process their emotions and be present and show themselves the love that they actually desire. Okay, now that's something that I'm trying to help alleviate in men is the desire to love yourself. A lot of men, they want external validation, but only because it will give them permission. They feel like it's a permission slip for them to love themselves. But all you have to do is love yourself right now where you are. Now, I think a big part of the reason why a lot of men struggle with that, they struggle with loving themselves and processing their emotions, is because of the stigmas that we have against male vulnerability. A lot of men care about what other people think. They convolute their insecurities and make them seem rational, but in reality, they're insecure. Okay, they are insecurities, and the same things that men often put women down about, which is acting on emotion, men do as well. Okay, they just do it in a different way. They utilize their grief to get to places in life. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. Okay, sometimes you need to use that pain to push you forwards, to generate momentum. But at a certain point, if you want to be happy, if you value yourself and your well-being, you're going to have to take some time to process your emotions. You're going to have to take some time to process your emotions. Okay, a lot of the all-time greats, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, their careers were founded on pain. And I'm not saying that what they did wasn't the thing that they were passionate about, but I do feel like for a lot of men, once you process your grief, you'll realize that your passion actually lies somewhere else than you thought it did. For a while, I thought that YouTube was the end-all be-all for me. When people asked me, I would tell them I'm going to do YouTube for the rest of my life. That's not to say that I'm not passionate about YouTube, but over time, as I've processed my grief, I realized that writing is in fact my greatest passion. Writing is what makes my heart sing. I don't care about the outcome because I have nobody to impress. I don't care about leveling up on the girl that I wrote this book about. I don't care about flexing on her or any other girl in any way. Whereas with YouTube, every time I hit any type of milestone, deep down, subconsciously, I was hoping that they would see it. I was hoping that every girl that had rejected me would see it because I wanted them to feel bad. Okay, I wanted them to feel the pain that I had felt. But I wasn't even willing to feel the pain that I had felt. Okay, I wasn't willing to take the time to process my emotions properly until I took on the process of writing that book. And that allowed me to ascend beyond the pain, okay, the pain body, the addiction to pain. A lot of us are addicted to pain. A lot of us are addicted to pain. Think about the type of content that you consume, the type of people that you gravitate towards. Why is it that you continuously attract toxic people into your life? Why is it that every time you try to find a relationship, you keep manifesting the same person over and over and over again with a different face? I've been through that. And one thing about me is that I'm very, very good at identifying patterns. I don't get caught up in patterns because I'm able to step beyond them and observe them objectively. And through my observation, I realized that if I'm attracting the same situation with different people over and over and over again, the situation being that I get ghosted, maybe I'm the reason why. Okay, maybe they're trying to show me something. Maybe my subconscious mind is trying to show me something by attracting these people into my life. Your subconscious mind is a supercomputer. Okay, think about how often you consciously act throughout your day. The majority of the time, you're on autopilot. That is your subconscious mind at work. But when your subconscious mind is clouded by all of this pain, and you don't give yourself a chance to heal by processing your emotions properly, by stepping beyond the stigma of what you think other men or even women will think about you, your pain essentially becomes your pimp. Okay, you are being pimped by your own pain. And no man that I know of wants to be pimped by anything or anybody. And yet you allow your pain to pimp you. You allow your pain to control, to dictate the decisions that you make in your life, or that you think you're making, but deep down you're not making them. And what ends up happening is that pain, because it helps you attract certain types of people into your life, you reinforce the belief. Instead of taking the time to step back and ask yourself, why is it that I'm attracting these types of people? Instead of taking accountability, you would rather utilize that pain to reinforce your beliefs, to strengthen those limiting belief systems, to prevent yourself from ever finding true love, and to utilize that pain as more fuel to add to the fire. Okay, and you might be successful. You might become a multimillionaire, but you won't be free. You won't be at peace with yourself. You won't love yourself because you're not willing to take the time to do the shadow work. There's a difference between being successful just to be successful and doing what you're genuinely passionate about and being successful at that thing. Okay, you guys have seen me break into tears when I hit 100K and when I hit all of these milestones on YouTube because I'm passionate about it. But when it comes to writing, I know that success in writing will bring me a lot more fulfillment because I enjoy writing more. It's a deeper sense of passion for me. Two different types of passions, but ultimately writing is my true passion. The only reason why I was able to find that when I did is because I took the time to process my emotions.